Hello, hello, can you hear me? Can anybody hear me, see me? Awesome, great. I'm sure maybe some people will drop in later, but I think it's time to get started, right? Hello, welcome. My name is Diana, and I'm really excited that you've decided to spend some of this afternoon with me. I'll address the elephant in the room straight away. Diana, Caplinska, you're like, she must be Polish, right? Nope. I do not even speak Polish, although dzień dobry is something I learned since arriving here. I live in Stockholm, and the Polish surname, well, the history of our continent is complex, and my grandma passed away before she told us the truth. So, that's how we're here. Please do ask questions in English down the line, but I totally don't hold it against you if you start speaking Polish to me. To compensate for this lack of Polishness, you might notice that I've dressed up in the colors of a Polish flag. That happened at some sort of subconscious level, and if you're like, no, Diana, that's just red. Nah, I even got the shoes. This is serious commitment here. No, really, I'm really grateful that you've decided to join me today for this. I promise that this session will be, well, hopefully useful, inspirational, and I'm aiming for fun. I'm aiming for us to have fun. And I have some sort of guesses of why you might be here. The title is a little bit provocative, right? Go to market, why you can't afford to be boring. So maybe some of you are here because you're wondering, oh my God, is my marketing a little bit boring? Do I need to have a little checkup and different perspective? I'm sure some people are triggered by the word afford. You put anything related to budget on a slide these days and people respond, right? It's been that way for a few months, years, as those of us who work in marketing know. And I have a suspicion that some of you are like, you're just here to like stir stuff up and like bring drama to the room. And yeah, totally, like look at my outfit. I'm literally here to do that. I wouldn't be dressed that way otherwise. But I promise you, even the skeptics, that if you're thinking that this is dramatic for no reason, you're wrong, because every bit of drama that I'm going to show you is heavily studied and backed by science. I'm a really big fan of science. So let's dive in. Why even listen to me? I've spent about 20 years doing all things marketing, from reading the textbooks with like 4 Ps and Kotler and all of that, down to working in all sorts of big agencies and management consultancies, helping big clients get it done and done well, because you got to be accountable for results, right? It's not all just fun and games. I've worked in London, I worked in Stockholm, where I'm based right now, and here are some logos, because people love impressive logos, right? So I did go to market for Google for 2 products that they were launching. One of them is EdTech SaaS, so if you're in SaaS, maybe you'll relate to that. And I've also launched the first global campaign for Airbnb when they were a little tiny Series C startup. So I've known firsthand from, about a decade ago what it's like to work with tech and get tech to pay attention to creativity in marketing, not just the clicks and engagement rates. I've also been in management consulting. There's an Accenture logo there. I'm going to say I survived Accenture. If you too have been fallen victim of Accenture or Big Four, please let's connect over that. And TBWA is one of the agencies I worked with. They're a very well-known network agency. And if you see next to their logo, it says the Disruption Company. So disruption, innovation, stirring stuff up, backed by science is kind of what I've been doing for the last about 20 years. So I hope that's kind of a bunch of logos persuasive enough for you to listen to me. But we're at a tech conference, and I want to start with an experiment. So here's an experiment. You know these companies, right? Please nod, otherwise I'll screw up on like slide 3, and that's really embarrassing. Yes, you know these companies. They're all CRM providers or adjacent, right? Pipedrive is sort of the most recent unicorn of them all. HubSpot is literally everybody's tech stack. And Salesforce is, well, Salesforce, at some point they were the fastest growing company in the world in like 2009, which I think is pretty crazy. So I have a test for you. We're going to do an experiment. I'm going to give you their mission statements, and you're going to try and see if you can make sense of them and connect them to the right one. One of them is building bridges between companies and customers sounds groundbreaking, doesn't it? The other one is helping customers unlock their business potential and scale. It's very telling, it's very unique. I'm being sarcastic, as you can tell, right? And the third one is helping millions of organizations grow better. They're so specific, aren't they? They're so relatable. And so, does anybody want to take a guess of what sits where in this one specific category, which, to be honest, could be applied way beyond CRM if we're being specific about it? Anybody want to take a guess? Ooh. Yeah, I would have thought Salesforce, to be honest, but anybody else? Help customers is Salesforce. A big company wants to help people. Yeah, cute. Maybe HubSpot. Anybody else? Anybody else? No? I mean, I don't blame you, because I don't remember. So here are the answers. Salesforce wants to build bridges. Or maybe they're going into urban planning as well. I don't know. It's Salesforce. They can do anything. Pipedrive wants to help, because I kind of see that, because smaller, cuter, right? We would just want to help. HubSpot helps millions of organizations. So you nailed it, right? You did millions. Yes, we got 1 out of 3. So CRM and very vague mission statement. And I think what we're witnessing right now is this sort of big disease in marketing, buzzword bingo, right? B2B is very much prone to that. Daria was a previous speaker here, and she also talked about how everybody might say things like, we grow your ROI. I'm also a big fan of we supercharge your business operations, la la la. And obviously that means nothing, and it's not very memorable. So not great. But maybe this was a hard experiment. I'm gonna give you an easier test and see what happens. These are pictures from different brands, but they're in the same product category. I'm not even asking you to name the brands, because I don't remember even. But what business are they in? What's the product category here? Does anybody want to? Okay, go. All right, close. What kind of stuff do they do for e-commerce?
ERP systems.
Oh, okay. Noted. Anybody else? I think e-commerce is a really good guess, because, you know, there's warehouse stuff and they are packing things. Anybody else? CRM? I wouldn't use 2 CRM examples, right? I'd be a bad speaker. But good guess. So it could be, I think e-commerce is a good guess. ERP, CRM, could have been something about supply chain logistics, shipping, could have been bookkeeping, right? You have an e-commerce store, you need to do the numbers. It's payments. It's payments. This is a slide that I once made when I was a European head of marketing at a payments SaaS company, the biggest one in Europe. And this is our category. So standing out was kind of easy, to be honest. But showing it to people and seeing their reaction, especially internally, was very painful. So what you're suffering from here is a different disease of B2B, is people smiling at screens visual identity. If you were to start a business, be it e-commerce or anything else related to tech, chances are you would, first of all, come up with an ad where there are people smiling at screens. Usually it's a white dude. Usually he's like wearing chinos, if you can see it, and he's very sort of well-dressed, fresh haircut, and a bottom down, which tells me that it's not a real person, it's a model, you know, because if you're running an e-commerce store, you don't have a fresh haircut, you're stressed the whole time. So that's something that has been bugging me, right? That it's very stock picture-y, the whole industry of B2B. Why do I care, right? Like, that's a fun experiment. Like, why do you care? Give us some science, Diana. And so if we have the same mission statements that we can't really pull apart, and if we have the same visuals that we can't really pull apart, does marketing even work? And I'm going to speak about mostly B2B right now, but all that I'm saying will apply to B2C as well. So I nerded out, and I found this study by a company called Systems One. they study how people respond to advertising. And so they looked at 1,600 ads in B2B, and they concluded that 75% of them do not drive long-term growth. And that's a lot of money. That's a few billions annual, maybe monthly, right, across the world. So that really bugged me. And why do they not drive long-term growth? Because they are not standout or creative enough. They're not memorable. Nobody notices them, nobody remembers them, nobody connects with them. And given that we just looked at a bunch of mission statements that were generic and pictures that were completely random and the same, I tend to believe that. So what do we do with that? Well, I want to introduce you to this scientist. Her name is Hedwig von Restorff. And she's a German psychologist, wrote a bunch of academic papers, and then did so well that she named the discovery in her name, which, you know, I respect that. So there's a thing called von Restorff effect, right? And if she were to look at all of these go-to-market examples, she would not at all approve of these efforts. She wrote a bunch of academic papers, but I'm going to summarize it to you in one slide so that you remember. People notice and remember what sticks out. You know, just like those ads didn't, because you couldn't tell me which mission statement is for which company, just like those visuals didn't, right? And that may or may not be the reason why I'm wearing this suit as a tech conference, because I do want to stick out and be remembered, right? So that we can keep in touch and you can tell your friends, oh my God, this is the girl talking, she was really good, follow her on LinkedIn, that sort of stuff. So whilst this might sound that I'm talking about some random German scientist who discovered something superbly psychological, it's very applicable to everyday life. If you think about yourself, we don't really remember what we've had for breakfast every day. If it's like the usual day, like Monday to Friday, just like whatever you pull out of the fridge, you eat it, right? But we do remember if we go on a different adventure in a different country and we need to figure out that we need to turn left from this church and there was this shop in a weird purple color and there was this man in a hat, right? We remember stuff that we're doing for the first time, stuff that stands out. We remember really dramatic newspaper headlines. That's because the brain is wired that way, to pay attention to what sticks out. Now, let's get back to marketing. The sad truth is that you've got a brand, whether you like it or not. So if you're marketing a tech product or any kind of product, having a really boring vanilla brand, it will cost you. If people don't see your message, don't notice it, if people don't remember it, then you're going to have to spend a lot more in paid media. You're going to have a bigger team churning out SEO articles. You're going to have to appear in many, many more channels to land the same message. Standing out is the hack. Standing out means that you're being really savvy with your budget. So now there's the good news. Well, what happens if you do well? If you stand out and you have a brand that's not boring, but actually stands for something and makes people notice and remember you. This is another study. I told you there's going to be a lot of science here, so that's what we have. This study is by the B2B Institute of LinkedIn, who would know B2B marketing better than people who get paid for ads by most B2B marketers on the planet, in collaboration with Bain & Company, you know, those like really expensive management consultants. So they collaborated, and they found out that 81% of B2B buyers end up buying the brand that came to their mind on day one. So they woke up one morning and they were like, I need this sort of solution. And what's happening is they're going, all right, who are the big guys? Like it's Adobe, Oracle, Salesforce, whatever, the providers that are default. That pops to their mind. Those must be playing in this category. All right, who else? Who else could I choose? Because that might be too big. I don't want to buy that. So they look at, I don't know, a post they've seen on social media. They remember what they've seen on social media. Maybe they're subscribed to a newsletter. Maybe their friend told them about something in a Slack group. You know, those kinds of looser connections. But something stood out and something was stuck in their head. And that's the short list. 81% of the time, whoever made on that short list is the one that gets bought. So yes, there is a behavior, oh, I'm going to search for this topic and then stumble upon this 10 ways to la 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 article on SEO, or these days people will ask ChatGPT increasingly. But 81% of the time, it's somebody that they already knew because they have this implied preference. I saw the ad from this company about like a year ago or 2 years ago or maybe 6 months ago, which means that they're legit, right? They've lasted 6 months, right? And it means that they knew me and what I needed well enough to appear on my feed, to appear in my community, etc. So there's this implied trust and preference, which is really important because I think that's the ultimate hack in marketing. And it does, unfortunately, go against a bunch of thinking related to marketing funnels, how we're going to nudge them and nurture them into conversion. So when I work with founders, I work with a lot of early stage SaaS founders or CMOs at bigger SaaS companies who realize that they need to invest in brand and be creative and stand out. And all the time I get the same questions. One of them is, which channel would give us the best ROI? Everybody wants to know it, right? Like, yay, I wish I could tell you. The other one is, we don't have a huge budget, where do we put it? Should we panic? How do we get more budget? I mean, that's like story of the last 5 years or so. And then we have a bigger competition. This goes two ways. One of them is, do we just like try and fight it with some, I don't know, hiring more people, which is obviously unlikely because you're not making the revenue to do more people and get more spend. Or the second way is my least favorite, but actually favorite when people say it, is should we just copy them? And then we'll be big too, right? We just take their messaging because they're succeeded with their totally different product, totally different ICP. So we'll just take their messaging, apply it to ours, and do the same kind of webinar, and it will all be dandy. And so I sit there, just like this dog in this meme, at all of these calls, and I smile, and I listen, and then I have to find a really polite way to say, it doesn't matter. Right? None of these questions matter. None of my answers really matter. None of it matters unless you stand out. So if you go with the same creative, you will not get randomly a lot better ROI in one channel than the other. So if you are relating to this, I'm not judging you, because I've seen it so many times, and I'm sure that if I was a founder, which is not a skill set that I have, then I would be struggling with the same thing, because I'd be juggling so many things that I need to do in my business that I just want to fix marketing somehow quickly. I'm not judging you. I'm here to tell you, I got you. I'll tell you exactly how to do it. I'll give you the recipe. Then I'll show you some examples of what that can look like. Hopefully you'll be like, that's cool, I want to do that myself. And then I'm going to give you a framework that I use for every single one of my clients so that you can be like, I'm going to go home, I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to tinker with it, and I'm going to arrive to messaging that doesn't suck, that differentiates me, that is punchy, that stands out, and that makes me money. So that's the agenda for today. Sounds all right? Okay, cool. Let's keep going. Well, I'll tell you a story. There's a lot of stories here. I might need to grab some water. It says on the slide, hold your horses, but also hold your features. Whilst I'm drinking this water, does anybody want to guess what I'm talking about? Overshare is a really fun word. I should use it more in my marketing. Yes? Anything else? Sort of feature benefit, ladder up, that sort of thing. Yeah. I'm going to go even further than that so that you're even less comfortable with what I'm about to say. So let's imagine that we're going to a bar. Each of you is going to a bar. And you see a person, you're like, this is a fun person. This is a stranger I want to hang out with. The vibes are matching. We could totally be best friends. And so you're like, I need to make friends with this person now. How do I even kick off a conversation? And usually, what do you talk about? You talk about how the weather is outside. It's raining. Oh my God, it's scorching hot. I'm sunburned, whatever. You talk about the music, right? That's a great playlist. What's your favorite music? I don't know. You might talk about drinks, ask for a tip for drinks. You talk about these like quite superficial things, right, at the first stage. Because otherwise it would be a bit invasive, you know? If somebody came to you in a bar and was like, hi, I collect rocks, and tonight you have to come to my party, you'd be like, what the hell? You're weirded out. This sounds like a creepy person. You need to run away. And that's probably good advice. Do you see what I mean? Like there's some sort of social social element there, like in terms of normality of how we behave. And so what I see tech brands doing, and that's particularly B2B SaaS brand, is they come at you, they throw all their features at you, and then they say, come to my webinar tomorrow, right? Which kind of, I understand why they're doing it, right? Because you have to get the leads because the sales team is waiting and they're really angry and hard to please. But that's not how humans work, right? So my advice is hold your horses, hold your features. There is time and place. But if you really want to connect to your audience, you do need to start a little bit softer on a slightly more, let's call it superficial level. And I didn't invent this. I'm just explaining it in that way with a real life example. I'm going to tell you who did. Nerds. So, more stats. There is a place, not Hogwarts, but close. It's Institute of Practitioners in Advertising. They're based in London, and they're massive nerds. They look at all the ads that exist, and they try to evaluate which campaign was most effective and why. So what happens is every year, like dozens of agencies, each has like 5 teams working and submit a case study about their client, like this client did this over this many years. We used econometrics to say that it was specifically this message that broke it, and that's why it grew. I've fortunately, but also painfully, has been a co-author of one of these, the weeks of my life that I will never get back, and my paper did explore whether David Beckham changing his haircuts had any impact on the sales of hair gel for teenage boys. And we had to isolate for that in econometric modeling, which was really painful. But they get these papers, they analyze decades of it, and there's one type of campaign that always performs the best. It's called fame. And it's not like a musical jazz hands thing, right? It's just literally a name of a marketing strategy called fame. And fame campaigns, they drive 4 times the market share growth than any other. And I would like to just underline market share growth, not like clicks, engagements, favorability. Market share growth. They go all the way to sales and market share growth because they isolate for that. It's very serious. And what are fame campaigns? They're not campaigns that say, hey, our product is better than the other product, or our product is cheaper than the other competitor product, or we're exactly for people like you. Fame campaigns are the ones that latch on culture, right? So they piggyback on culture to become relevant. It's exactly these things about you walk into a bar and you talk about the weird playlist, the drinks, the weather, the weird lamp, the fun interior, whatever it may be. You latch onto each other with like very kind of brief, mild messaging, which then opens the door for further communication. So this sort of stuff works 4 times better for market share growth. And this is not a stat that's very well known in tech. I guess I was lucky because I've been exposed to it early on in my marketing career. And what I'm trying to do is bring this into the masses because it's proven to work, right? So if you saw on the first slide, my company is called Fame Overflow because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make brands famous in tech because that's where the money is. So I'm going to show you some examples. These are ads. They exist, they're real, they ran. For some of my clients, I wrote them. This is an ad for an HR SaaS company. So they do things like pulse surveys. Are your employees happy? Do they want to leave? Do they hate each other? Is your manager terrible? You know, that sort of stuff. Are they collaborating? Do sales and marketing love each other? Those pulse surveys type. And I met the CMO a few years ago, and she was telling me, to be honest, like between you and me, I'm not even sure the world needs another HR tech company. I was like, wow, you got a great job here. Like, what are we going to do with that? And then I realized that's a great opportunity because I needed to flip it somehow. I needed to say, no, like that's exactly why the world needs you. And what I started looking at is, what is the reality of corporate culture these days, right? Because if there's so many HR companies that are improving all the HR all over the world, then we'd be happy, clappy people who love our jobs and never want to leave and don't even need a pay rise to stay happy, right? But in reality, you have layoffs. Oh, you're a family. And then next month, you're laid off. You have forceful return to office where people are being treated like toddlers. You have a whole bunch of things since COVID that make absolutely no sense in corporate environment. So corporate culture is kind of broken. And then I said, what if you're the one who say that you're here to fix it with your very different approach? What if we push on that pain of corporate culture being broken, because that's the reality of culture, and write some ads that provoke HR people to identify that what they're doing right now is not good. And that's how the first ad was born. It says, I don't know if you can see from far away, "Pizza parties make me feel valued. Said no one ever." If you scroll that as an HR director, you might take it personally, or you might hide and run away, but it sure as hell tells you that something is potentially wrong. And everybody does seem to respond to pizza parties, strangely. And the second one says, "I always give 100% at work, 70 of it to my side hustle." And that's, again, the reality, the popular culture where, yeah, you have a job and then you have the other job and then you don't tell your boss about that job. So I looked at a bunch of trends on social media that talk about, corporate culture reality, the trends of quiet quitting. I found a really cool one called coffee badging, which is a hashtag apparently, where people are forced to return to office. So they come in and they scan their badge, and so they get a coffee and then they go home to work because they don't want to be in the office, which I think is a rather cute explanation of the human condition. Why I'm listing all of these to you, because it wasn't just these banners that I made. We then made a thought leadership piece for HR directors, cheat sheets of 10 social professional trends that you don't know about but really should. And all I did was sit down and go through TikTok and find those trends and explain them, and use the psychologists that were sat inside the client's company to say what to do with that, right? So suddenly you didn't have to spend 100,000 on a big piece of original research. The research is under everybody's nose. You just need to open the internet and write about culture. Culture. A bunch of other ads. This is for a client that's in Sweden. They're growing globally. They are a go-to-market SaaS solution, basically very complex tech, but they help your free trial users upgrade, right? They push the right messages at the right time, la-di-da-di-da. And these are some ads that were written for them and perform well. Again, we're latching on to culture. We're saying, why are you ghosting your trial users? You never follow up to convert them. So the first ad says, "I never thought I'd get ghosted by a SaaS tool," and that's 93% of your product users. And the second ad is a bit more quirky, because we are marketing to sales and marketing people, and as a marketing person, I'm like really hard to market to, right? We're super judgmental. We are not open to that. You better do better. So this is a bit cheeky, a little bit playful. It's a quiz. Your most promising customers are A, your CRO's brother-in-law, very credible. B, that guy Dave from that event, which is how we unfortunately talk about people we meet at events. Or C, your most active trial users. And it kind of makes sense which one of them is the right one. And this is what the software does. Their software helps you figure out how to help your current users buy. I have another example for you. It's a cute baby. I'm like going hardcore here to persuade you. It says, "Do you think she'll like this baby gift?" And if you have to ask, it probably isn't it. And this is for a company that has a solution that helps HR departments reward their employees when they had a baby. I'm not sure reward is the right phrase. Appreciate. Ah, you had a baby. Fantastic. Here's a little gift. And the tension in culture is babies are personal. Child rearing is very personal and intimate. What the hell do we send them, right? So this company prides itself on being the expert in exactly what parents need without it being weird. So I don't know if you felt any emotions where I showed you this ad. I know it's bright lights, so I can't really read you that well, but maybe you did, and that was by design. Another stat, woohoo! In B2B, emotional messages are 7 times more effective than rational ones. Again, it's a stat by the B2B Institute of LinkedIn. They know what's up. It's kind of a bit uncomfortable, right? We think B2B are all rational. We're people in suits making big decisions for a lot of money. It's weird, right? But if you think about it, work life is kind of weird, right? What are you going to do if you screw up? You're going to get fired. All right, that's a fear. Fear is a really big and powerful emotion. What do you actually want to do? And, oh, I want sales to not hate me. Marketer's dream, right? What else? Well, I want to get promotion that I've been promised to for 2 years, but I don't have the KPIs, right? So all of it is about Ambition, dream, ego, self-actualization, a lot of the working world is actually filled with emotions. And so to me, it's actually no surprise that in B2B, emotion performs so well. If you're like Diana, it must be even higher for B2C, no? Because, you know, mom's buying things for their kids, that's really emotional. Nah, it's only 2 times more. I'm really surprised myself as well. I think it's just because we're so overwhelmed with B2C messaging. It's everywhere and stalking us that we're sort of tuning out and become really skeptical and, you know, ooh, capitalism, right? But not in B2B, not quite yet. Where do we go from here? Emotion. Emotion matters, emotion sells, emotion converts. I'm going to give you some examples. This is a client of mine. They're called Divly. They do, very niche category, crypto taxes, B2C. And I know crypto taxes are suddenly big in Poland because Poland performed really well on their SEO in the last month. This is their competitive set. As you see, it's a sea of blue. And they tell you that they're going to do it in under 20 minutes, all of them. And when we put it side by side, we're like, shit, what are we going to say, 19 minutes? Do you know what I mean? Like, where do you go from there? So we needed to think a little bit harder. And we started wondering, does anybody actually time it as 20 minutes? Does anybody care that it's 20 minutes? Maybe what they really want is for it to not be a horrific experience. And sometimes it does take longer than 20 minutes for it to be clear and accurate so that IRS doesn't get them ideally or another local tax authority. Very high stakes event there. And so we came up with a line, crypto taxes without the headache, because that's what people actually care about. And how do I know that it's a line that performs well and works? Because now they get reviews where people write, indeed, Divly did well. It was about crypto taxes without the headache. Yay, right? And here's my tip for you. If you want to test your positioning, it probably is performing really well if the customers are dictating it back to you in their emails, in their reviews, or whatever it may be. So emotions, not just at ad level, but also at website level, because this is buzzwords. This knows exactly what I'm struggling with and is trying to give me a better experience. And if you're like, but my website is amazing, or you're like, maybe my website isn't, but I don't know how bad it is, but so somebody should give me objective feedback. I personally found that giving people unprompted feedback on their website isn't a good idea. But here's a semi-scientific, semi-objective tool that I recommend. I'm not endorsed. Once you open their page, you'll see why. It's called blablahmeter.com. You go there, you copy some of your copy from your website, and it will tell you how much of it is blah. So sort of buzzword analysis. And this is me copying someone's website, and I got a bullshit index of 1.37. Their index is 0 to 1, so that didn't work out too well. Interesting fact, I met with the CMO of this company who didn't see value in doing any messaging work. So this is a really subtle, secretive way that you can check yourself without feeling embarrassed or having to put all your work out there for judgment. I recommend it. More ads. I'm going to show you more ads. Emotion. When people talk about emotional advertising in B2B, they're like, I don't want to sound like a clown. And like, I get it. You're a serious company. You're marketing to C-level execs. Why the hell would you want to sound like a clown? Nobody will take you seriously. So sometimes humor is not the only emotion, right? Sometimes empathy is the emotion. And this is an ad that performed weirdly well for a company called Tag Insight. SaaS, they help you with Google Tag Manager. Now, people will be like, what is Google Tag Manager, Diana? You're just talking gibberish. And first of all, if you're thinking that, like, you're so lucky that you don't know. Secondly, it's the thing that marketers have to deal with, and it once made me cry. And thirdly, it's so complicated that last week I asked a developer at my client's site to help me install it, and he came out after 3 hours saying it destroyed me. Google Tag Manager fucking sucks. Sorry. Nobody likes it. Everybody hates it. It's really painful. There's a reason this company exists, because it automates everything related to Google Tag Manager. And it's targeting agency owners who are like, oh my God, I'm going to write cute ads, and they're going to perform super well for my clients. And the clients are going to be like, return on ad spend is incredible. We're going to extend this contract. And in reality, all of these people are sat there tinkering with a broken Google Tag Manager. So that's why this ad is here. Bet your agency dream wasn't a Google Tag Manager routine. Extra points to myself for rhyming. I do enjoy alliteration and rhyming. Why? Because our brain remembers it. We think it's cute, funny, endearing, human, right? So that's why I try to use that. That performed well, and obviously I would know because I sit and check the dashboard all the time. Another one. You're like, what the hell? It does say, I love it when you call me by my ticket number, yes. And now I will explain why. Another client of mine, where CX analytics platform, right? Customer experience analytics, very useful. Everybody should want it. Sort of makes sense, but nobody wants to allocate budget for it because it's very hard to glue it back to the ROI, right? It's some imaginary maths that needs to be done and nobody believes it. So when I was working with the CEO, I was like, well, yeah, you sort of do need to link one to the other, but also if you have no way to do it, we need a different way. We need a different provocative way in. So the campaign was born and it was called, you think you're customer-centric, but would your customer say you're customer-centric? Hence, one of the ads is, I love it when you call me by my ticket number, which is what a customer might never say, but is exactly how a customer gets treated in not a very customer-centric way, if you know what I mean. This kind of stuff that doesn't belong on LinkedIn, but when you put it there, it sticks out, it sparks curiosity, it makes people go, who the hell put this ad in here? It makes them look at your LinkedIn page, makes them click and explore your website, upon which you will find a lot of information by product marketers that tells you exactly what this platform is, what it's good for, who it is for, what are the features, what are the benefits, and why you should go for them. Because in most tech companies, product marketers work hard, right? There's a lot of messaging that is product specific, but there's very little of the top one that actually makes somebody pay attention to them. So I usually employ these as sort of umbrella level that sits at the top, that allows the rest of the work to get seen. Do you know this guy? Who is that? You know. He's from Silicon Valley. Does anybody know his name? It's Jared. It's Jared Dunn from Silicon Valley. I love Jared. Jared's cute, right? Jared is a little bit weird. He's really smart. He knows what's up. The sucky thing is nobody's ever listening to Jared, right? You kind of just, I don't want to hang out with him. I want to give him a hug and support him, right? And that's the problem. A lot of brands, tech brands, and especially B2B brands, they do sound like Jared Dunn from Silicon Valley. They're sort of doing all the right things, but nobody's listening, nobody's paying attention. And emotion is how you cut through that. It could be funny, yes, haha, funny, but I personally prefer empathy. I prefer sassiness or sarcasm. Fun fact, when I write campaigns for a client, I usually do 3/4 territories. 80% of the time, the client buys a sarcastic one, because in B2B, we really want to be like clever funny, right? We don't want to be clowns. We want to be like, I'm a little bit better than you, and I'm going to be funny about it, right? Like little comedians. So that's what people end up buying. That's what they're comfortable with. That's the emotion that they want to provoke. Still sounds smart. And now we're on to the very important part with what the hell do you say, right? I've been talking through, 20 slides now, telling you stories about how everybody's invisible and we're saying the right thing and it's very bad. So we need to find the right thing to say and we need to stand out and you have to dare to be different and there's science and my German friend there, who's all about standing out and stats. Great, like now what? What do we do? Don't worry, I got you here. This is the juicy part. I'll talk you through a very specific process, 3 steps to figure out what the hell you need to say to stand out. But first, again, just a reminder of why it matters. Let's assume you're a small company and you're taking on big market players. You don't have budget. Of course you don't have budget. How are you going to compete with a bigger enterprise client? Very hard, right? They will outright you on SEO. They'll just put more people to churn out content. They have more money for ads. So if there are any leads in market, they'll be like, I got them, not you. What else are they going to do? They're going to go to the events with the biggest booth, so you're not going to stand out there, are you? Basically, anything that is about function and money, they will beat you before you've even started. And even if you are a scale-up, right? You have solid revenue, you're a global company, you're a well-known brand, you're still competing against, chances are like Oracles, Adobes, and Salesforces of the world, right? Because they are the default solution, right? They are what's in the brain within that shortlist always, and you want to be in that shortlist. So this is a recipe for both of those scenarios. Whereas you're small, completely small, or a scale up, you still need to fight. And what it's called is being a challenger brand. Now, I would have liked to say that I made it up, but I didn't make it up. This is a book, it's quite old actually. It's 20, 30 years old. It's called Eating the Big Fish, which I like as a title because it's so damn weird that it is a business book, it makes you pay attention. How challenger brands can compete against brand leaders. This is not new thinking, this is hardcore theory, right? And what I like about it is that as a smaller company without budget, it means you're not alone. And honestly, you're not that special because there's been a recipe of solving it for the last 20 years. So I'm gonna tell you how to do it based on this mindset shift in my own way. The book is good on a philosophical level, I find. So if you wanna read it, feel free. You could also just put a ChatGPT, give me a summary, right? But when I'm giving you are frameworks that are not in the book, but given that I've worked at a bunch of agencies that all use challenger brand methodology, I've defined my simplest one. But first, what it feels like to be a challenger brand. I found this online, and I thought that's a really perfect, horrible picture to explain what that feeling is like. It's a market map. This one is within e-commerce, tech, and consumer retail, right? But being a challenger brand is knowing that you are here, one of about 1,000 or maybe 10,000, and at the same time, that's not your biggest problem. The biggest one is that tomorrow Adobe or Oracle or Salesforce can come in and beat you, just because they have the cash. So challenger brand is sort of a very anxiety-inducing place to be, probably a lot of sleepless night. But you can't outspend them, but you can outsmart them. So that's what we're going to talk about. My recipe on how do you actually act like one. I have 3 steps. So can't do that with a clicker. 3 steps. I'm gonna talk to you step by step with examples of a client of mine who gave consent to be featured in this. And then at the end we can do Q&A, and if we have the time, which we actually might, we could even do it together as part of a workshop for somebody. Sounds good? All right, step number 1. You'll be like, this is obvious. Bear with me. Research your industry. You're like, Diana, for fuck's sake, that's like 2 weeks. I'm going to give it to an intern. I'll find out about nothing. I already know my industry. Like, why are you telling me to research my industry? That's stupid. All right, well, let's go with me. I want to know what competitors claim, like features, benefits, any sort of higher order benefits. Like, I don't know, you don't lose your job, but you'll sell to Oracle, whatever, if you work with us. How the industry media covers it. Almost nobody ever goes that far. And think about industry media. They're basically looking for a new story, a story that will stand out because only then will you read it, right? So what are they picking up on? Because that's the newest, juiciest stuff that they believe customers will respond to. They're giving you the answers. And then what really bugs the audience? And here I could say, well, 30 interviews with your ICP split by segment, 45 minutes each. As a management consultant, I used to do that. We got paid good money for that. And then a PowerPoint slide, then you submit it as a PDF. You hope that the company will change everything about themselves and nothing happens. So I don't want you to do that, and I definitely wouldn't want anybody to pay me to do that. I do it much faster and in a more fun way. I use memes. All the insights about your ICP are already on the internet. So very specifically, you go into image search on Google. I don't know if ChatGPT does this, something like that. Yeah, I haven't tried yet. You put the job title or your ICP. I'll give you examples later. And then the word meme right next to it. And you will see 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 different memes that you will probably be able to relate to. Why memes? That's sort of quite random, right? I'm not saying post memes on your company page. I'm saying use it for research. That's because a lot of the time when difficult things happen in life, we kind of don't want to share. We don't want to feel weak. You know, we're scared of judgment. But humor saves the day, right? If you suddenly turn it into comedy, If you're suddenly able to be relatable by making other people laugh, that's all fine. Literally, memes are often how people deal with terrible, terrible situations. So when you want pain points, complaints, disillusionment, it's all there. I'll give you examples. I don't know if you can read it, so I'll read it for you. Remember the whole Barbenheimer thing like a year or two ago in the summer? What Barbie movie and the other one got released? You can tell which one was my favorite by how I said it's the other one, because I don't remember the name. This was for customer experience, CX analyst meme, that was a search. And it says when CSAT is increasing, customer satisfaction score. And the other one, but you don't know why. What do I find out from that? I instantly know that if you're a CX analyst, even when things are good, unless you explain why the hell they're good with data, you're not doing your job well, right? I've had the CEO explain that to me, and that took 45 minutes, but meme, just 2 minutes, perfect. This is for that HR company that got me to amazing insight that corporate culture is just people lying to one another. Right? It's just lying for our teeth. And this guy here, the meme is when your manager talks to you about your 2024 goals, but your goal for 2024 is to leave the company. And he's kind of crying and face-palming. That's the reality, right? That's often the reality of being in the corporate world. There's one about change management. I had a client within that, digital transformation. And what it says, in my company, we're doing digital transformation. How? We are entering customer data from paper to Excel. Right? So the insight is digital transformation and innovation is in the eye of the beholder, right? So whenever this client enters a new project, they really don't know what to expect because what people say and what people do are very different things. There's one on supply chain, that's also Barbie mode. It just tells me that everybody's always chronically understaffed and turning resentful. Last week I did that for a hospitality tech company. Very simple, a lot of memes related to mostly Gordon Ramsay, the idiot sandwich. I don't know if you've seen it. That's really harsh, but that's the reality of the industry. The hospitality industry is not hospitable towards its people. And this is the final one, and I'll go into more detail on that because that's the one used for the example that I'm going to share with the real client example. AI everywhere. AI projects often fail right at the start. That's the insight. And if you see, it's a boy stepping over stairs, and somewhere over here at the bottom is a business case and data quality, and is it even digestible and analyzable? And then maybe there's analytics, but the CEO wants LLM and GPTs straight away without going through the steps necessarily to even kick off a project of this kind. So that's an example, right, of the dysfunction of the industry. So when I said, let's research the industry, and you were like, Diana, what do you mean? What I meant is spend like literally 20 minutes looking at memes, and you'll know exactly what hurts the most. Then, again, sounds really obvious. You need to identify industry norms. And I want you to be not objective, but extremely judgmental here. It's a very satisfying task. You gotta be a little bit mean. You gotta be like a little bit evil. Oh my God, this doesn't work. This would never, this is terrible, right? Love that. Allows us to be human. So you want to figure out the rules that the market plays by. What are, like, this is just a given in our industry that we never put pricing on the pricing page and make you talk to our sales team to tell you how much it costs. That's an industry norm. That kind of sucks. Assumptions that guide it, right? In Daria's previous session, she mentioned things like you always need to fill in a form with industry size, with who you are. Are you just a junior designer? We're not talking to you, right? So the assumption is nobody cares about junior people because they're no decision makers, whereas in fact, they're the ones influencing the decision. And the norms that are anything but normal. You're looking for dirt here. You're looking for stuff that is sort of quite uncomfortable, that if you were to bring it to a person, you'd be like, yeah, actually, I can't believe you do that in this industry. This makes absolutely no sense. And the example I'll show you is from a client who work with AI. Doesn't everyone these days? No, but they actually do. They were my guinea pig for this framework. So I did it a long time ago, specifically so that I could share it with more people. So they're a small consultancy, 2 people that do AI. They're very senior. They've done it for years. They know exactly what the difficulties are and how to get there. And they compete with the likes of Accenture, right? Who are like, oh, we'll take your project and do it in 2 years for a lot of money. I thought that's a really interesting claim. How do we wrap them up into a message that makes them the no-brainer? So here are the norms that I identify. Using memes, because I obviously don't know anywhere near as much about AI as people with this amount of experience. You'll see that I use very simple language on purpose because I don't want to hide behind buzzwords. I want it to be crystal clear. Someday, today, doing stuff, getting stuff done. That's very purposeful. So let's go horizontal first. Most people talk about AI with a sense of it's happening sort of someday. You see a lot of reports, unleash the power of AI. You have webinars about what AI can do for you in, I don't know, 12 months or 2 years. You have a lot of these future-gazing publications saying, oh, how AI will change the world. There's a lot of like, you know, eventually it will happen. It's very distant. And then on the other end, you have today, right, which is what the team that I work with do. They're like, right, we'll build you a proof of concept in 2 weeks, and then if you like it, we do it properly. So I was like, that's crazy. That's really cool. So you are the only ones that are saying, going from this dreamy land to action mode to a hard delivery. That's really cool. And then let's look at the vertical. Doing stuff and getting stuff done. So what I noticed analyzing the memes and the industries and all the company pages of the competition is everybody's doing stuff. There's like a 30-page report on how do you implement this like that, but not like this, and then, you know, put it into your CX, put it into your marketing, whatever it may be, right? So there's a lot of fluff there. There's a lot of speakers on stage, media trained, and good suits. Guy from Accenture who will never work on your business, but he stands there and he does this amazing speech to tell you that Accenture knows, and I'm sufficiently young to look credible in this, but also my features are sufficiently serious for you to trust me, you know, that sort of stuff. And there's very few actually getting stuff done, and they know that because they worked in those companies. Nothing ever goes into production. Everybody's talking, everybody's mapping, and then something breaks down, somebody pivots, it's taking too long. Nothing ever goes into production. So if you're able to say, we get code into production, you're golden. And they are, because they're so senior and smart. And they have this amazing way of doing 2-week proof of concept. So the norms I've identified is everybody's doing stuff, and everybody's talking about AI someday. That's a pretty sucky norms, right? Like we're ChatGPT on our way here. And when it comes to B2B integration of AI, nobody is actually there willing to help. This poor CTO who got a call from the CEO saying, what are we doing with AI? Has no business case, but needs to deliver a plan like next week, right? So that's the reality that we identified in a lot of these cases. So the norms suck. Their norms aren't helpful to the ICP. And then 3, you undermine industry norms. This is critical. If you're a challenger brand, you got to challenge, right? It's in the name. You got to find that Achilles heel, and you got to put all the arrows into that damn heel. You have to be a little bit evil and a little bit cheeky and a little bit naughty and provocative. So you undermine industry norms. You call out what's objectively unhelpful, wrong, or just isn't there when it should be there. By doing that, you become the only one that has a better way, right? You sort of become a little bit like the default way forward, because if those norms are how it's been to date and I'm the new player and I'm saying, this is terrible, I'll show you the way, you'll believe me, right? Because I already did half the job, I told you what's not working. And in the end, you become the must-have, because people have this interesting cognitive bias where if I were to tell you that I understand your pains and what's not working, then you will automatically assume that I kind of maybe know how to solve it, right? This is how you see all these landing pages that are extremely good at persuading you to buy this supplement that will make you live forever, or any other digital product that will change your life. They work because you push on the pain points with the right words. What does it look like in reality? Here, I usually ask for a brand tone of voice. Nobody can ever give me one because it's Jared Dunn. I know the brand tone of voice, right? So we got to be a bit experimental, like how wild can you go? If we use empathy, do you want to be provocative, or are you just saying that? And these guys were like, Diana, just make it work. We want to be punchy and mean. I'm like, amazing. That's what you want. It's my honor. Get AI done already, right? Be very intense and aggressive about it. So we're in the corner there. Doing stuff, get stuff done. We want the get stuff done. Someday to today, we want to get stuff done today. And then you see how it didn't take me a big leap to arrive to the words, get AI done already. It's literally a mixture of what's on the what's on the chart. It's purposefully aggressive because that's what we wanted. And it's speaking to CTOs who are procrastinating all the time because they don't have enough information, because they didn't get a proper brief, because something just needs to get done, and they don't want to pay for 2 years of Accenture work that never sees the light of day. They also don't want to speak to another 26-year-old on stage in a media suit with media training, right? They just want somebody who will get in, get their hands dirty, and get stuff done. So what happens then is you have a very simple, buzzword-free, very important, buzzword-free one-liner that instantly attracts attention of the people. It's the fact that it's buzzword-free, it's the fact that it uses this playful human casual language, and then you can use it across all of your touch points on the website, in the ads, in the emails, etc. Emails are usually derivatives of that, right? So you think, what other parameters do we need to highlight? How does that live across LinkedIn or any other social media? But at the core of it, what you're trying to communicate here is get AI done already, right? Rather than we are another AI consultancy, la la la. So it's about snappiness of it. And that's the most important part, right? Because that's the strategy. And whilst it might sound hard, I just explain it to you in what, about 10 minutes? I usually do it in one day, including research that isn't 20 minutes of looking at memes, but also looking at customers, at ICP, looking at the competitor claims, so it does feel like a real strategy, right? A solid one that you can share with the CEO. And from here, you get examples like this. Our friends who do HR surveys and pizza parties, I've shown you the ad before. This is what we did with their website headline, make your workforce a true force. Again, I don't know if you noticed, but I do love repeating words, alliteration, rhyming, etc., because it works, because it tickles the brain and then you remember it, right? What it was before was something along the lines of, optimize HR with our people management and enablement platform, which doesn't quite roll off the tongue in the same way, if you know what I mean. Maybe somebody's into it, but I personally am not. And another example, it used to be something along the lines of analyze customer insights to enhance CX and drive sustainable growth. Whew, that was a very long sentence. How do you say that so people, so it's catchy? Well, to get customers, you need to get customers, right? So that's very few words that do stick in your brain, and suddenly that's your line, right? That's just inspiration, but I wanted to say that even for fairly boring tools, I mean, HR isn't sexy, is it? Do you think CX is sexy? You can play with words and copywriting to find that emotional edge that allows you to perform better and be more visible. And why the hell would you care, right? So let's go back to the strategic level, because people might be like, she just really loves words. And I do, because it makes people make money. But also, I love words. If you do this first, here's what you get. Instead of fighting over, we built this feature this quarter, but our competitor's only going to build it in 2 months, so now we have 2 whole months of unsustainable competitive advantage, which is really stressful and expensive if you think about it. You get emotional preference. I just like this brand more, and I saw them 6 months ago, and they made me smile, so they understand me, so I want them, rather than the other ones. Instead of sales reps being left on red, I don't know if any of you are in sales, but goodness me, how did you choose that job, and how do you deal with all this rejection every day? Hats off, would never be able to do it. But that's the game, right? It's mostly like people ignore you 99% of the time. You have open doors to decision makers because you're a well-known brand, right? People are talking about you. And I usually do it as a test with my clients. So far, I've not succeeded to make a single one SaaS company not do cold outreach. I do try, but all of them are doing cold outreach. And I say, let's run awareness ad in the background to the same list. And so what we do is we compare open rates. And they go up. And we compare conversions to a call, and they go up, because you're not a random spammer, which a lot of cold outreach usually is. You are a company with a personality by people who sound human and are a little bit interesting, either empathetic to my needs or provocative. And a lot of the time, even if the buyer is not in the buying mode, they're like, yeah, let's talk, you guys do funny ads, right? And that's a door open, which is way better than complete report to spam. And finally, having to battle customer inertia is really painful. We often think about direct competition, like another startup in a similar stage, another startup a few years ahead. oracles, etc. of the world. But a lot of the time we're fighting inertia, right? Because, God, new tool, yeah, you're 10x my everything. But now I have to learn a new tool, right? And I'm a marketer. I should be like obsessed with Claude. Nah, I'm not switching from ChatGPT. It knows everything about me. It's one of those, right? Claude is literally built to write well, and I'm not going to do it. It's inertia. We're all human. We want to manage our energy levels and what we spend it on. And when you are a brand that's visible, that stands for something, that's saying all the right things, that's on the radar, that gets your audience, there is a perceived reduction in risk that comes with going with your brand, right? Just because you're in the vernacular and you've already formed that emotional connection. It's very hard to talk about emotions in B2B, let's get real. Everybody wants clicks and numbers and whatnot. But there's a reason why I gave you an overwhelming amount of stats, charts, and science here, because I'm trying to argue that emotion is actually the smartest way to win in tech and extremely underused. So if you're sat there asking those questions that I listed to you in the beginning, what channel will give me the best ROI? Well, how do I allocate my budget, which is nothing, right? Or should I just copy my competition? Red flag, right? I want to remind you that you do need to find your own way, and you need to be creative. Otherwise, none of those questions matter. And the good news is creative freedom is free, especially if you're a small startup without brand guidelines, but just still figuring out how they want to communicate. If you're a scale-up who has already a certain way of talking, there's always a way to latch onto it and find a way to communicate that is slightly more interesting and gets you there. It's a sort of upper funnel level. Creative freedom is free. Experiment, play, etc. It will, I'm 100% certain that whatever you do will perform better than disappearing in the sea of sameness with dudes smiling at laptops and energizing synergies for a better ROI. I think that's about it. We do have some time for a Q&A after, but I'll just finish with this slide for now. I would love to stay in touch with you. I'd love to help you nail your go-to-market if that's something you need. You can add me on LinkedIn. That's me there. B2B marketing is a grind unless you have a brand, is my line. Do you know how I got there? I did that exercise, you know? That one, that's how I got to that line. You can steal some of my frameworks, ideas, examples, how I think about ads, etc. And I'm always posting more. They're in the featured section. You can go on my website, and there's a video of exactly the thing that I told you about with the X and Y axis and the 3 steps. And you can join my newsletter. I have a newsletter. It's called B2B That Made Me Feel Things, right? I know it's weird. That's on purpose. And I look at campaigns that actually grab my attention, were interesting, and then I explain with science why it worked, right? Because in that way, people can learn something and apply it to their own work. And if you need any help this summer, let's talk. I'll be eating, drinking, etc., and enjoying myself after this talk. So I'm sure we can figure something out. I'm going to leave the slide hanging there. I'm going to grab some water, and then we can do Q&A. How does that sound? Cool? I'm really glad I haven't fallen off my heels in the last 70 minutes. You can shout. Stand out.
Joe?
Thanks. Love it. You know, I'm the true fan.
Thank you.
Could you say something more? I mean, you can actually repeat, okay, but maybe you'll manage to say it to give some more angle, because this fame campaigns.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. It's about culture.
Yeah.
I get it. It's about non-standard perspectives. Yeah. It's how you angle the message that you have to deliver. But I was trying to, to join the dots between these fame campaigns and then humor and the emotional ads that you presented, and they try to decode it. Okay, and maybe something more about this fame ad. How you understand this?
So I understand your question because we're jumping between like the tech buzzwords, right, and the hardcore marketing science by the marketing nerds, which do exist. You'd be surprised, and those are the two worlds that I'm trying to combine. So the definition of fame campaign is groundbreaking. I know, is trying to make the brand famous, right? So if we were to, I don't know, make it sound simple, it's virality potential. Is there a hook? Is there something that would be PRable about it? Like, if you put that into a PR release, will somebody pick up on it? Like, what's your original take? And the way you asked this question was quite telling as well, because one of the things to say was it was about sort of an unconventional take, right? And this sounds quite weird, but I would say it's not necessarily about coming up with a new, it's amplifying what's already there. It's sort of untold truths, right? Often when clients come to me, they're like, oh, what are we going to do? Are you going to make stuff up? And I'm like, no, I'm going to talk to you, and then I'm going to research. I'm going to find the truth that's sufficiently interesting, and then I'm going to tell it, right? And the test is, for an idea that has that potential, is it true? Is it new? Or has another competitor been talking about it? Because if it's true and everybody's talking about it, it's not very interesting. And the other one is, it's surprising, because it could be new, but like, I don't care, right? Like, because that sounds legit, the end, right? So those are the three things that I usually think about. Is it true? Is it new? Is it surprising? I can give you an example. They're not here, but their head of marketing is a fan, so I'm going to share it. I think I won't get fired for that. So I've written a campaign for a business as wild as e-commerce taxes, so B2B taxes for e-commerce. And the research for that was, I did memes. E-commerce is hard. Like, you're literally like packing boxes with one foot whilst doing customer support, and you're always to blame. And then Mark Zuckerberg raises prices on ads. Like, what a terrible business to be in. This is really hard. But that didn't give me necessarily the final insight that we went with. I went on Reddit, and I searched for e-com taxes. And I was like, how do people talk about e-com taxes? Now, if you're a larger retailer, you have an accountant that helps you with that. But if you're like smaller or mid, you're likely to research, because you also might have an accountant, but you don't trust this accountant yet. And I pulled down some quotes that were absolutely ridiculous. One person was asking for advice with e-commerce taxes, and somebody with a nickname, I'm a spicy meatball 23, this is real, said, I don't know why you're so worried about e-commerce taxes. There's no difference between physical store taxes and e-commerce taxes. You'd go to jail for that take, right? You would fail your taxes so hard you'd go to jail, right? So one of the creative executions that we ended up with is, who do you trust with your e-commerce taxes? And maybe you shouldn't trust I'm a spicy meatball 23, etc. Right? There are other things. One of the lines was, sure, use ChatGPT for your e-commerce taxes. It will come to court with you as well, won't it? Right? So the insight was, people do weird stuff because they don't want to pay a proper provider who knows. And we didn't want to tell them, you're wrong. People typically don't respond well to you're wrong. But we kind of want to be a little bit sarcastic and say, sure, when you're ready, come to us, right? That was one of the territories. There's a total of 4 of them, but this was one of them. And it's based on the truth. The truth exists. I'm a spicy meatball. Think about it, right? How ridiculous that is. But people do operate in these communities, right? And so I always look for the truth. Another thought was, in order to come up with some other executions, I interviewed a bunch of people who work in that company. So we just did literally half-an-hour interviews, head of customer experience, juicy stories about what happens. And he told me that they sit there, and this client comes in and says, my accountant said this, and I've been doing this for 10 years. So good, right? And they're like, I think you know that it's not good. You're a little bit suspicious, which is why you're here. And this person has been filing their taxes wrong for 10 years. And if you actually recalculate, they don't have a business. So for 10 years, they thought they were a successful entrepreneur with a successful e-commerce store, and that was part of their identity. And they're actually not. They're not. If they pay their taxes properly, they've failed 10 years ago. So they've lost their identity, they've lost their store, they've lost 10 years of their life, and they might go to jail unless they address this really quickly, right? So that's another insight. It's a truism. You can write a very dramatic campaign on that. I wouldn't be using fear, because that doesn't, some marketers will tell you it works really well, but it makes your brand the evil one, the mean one. Nobody wants to be the mean brand, right? But I would maybe play with that in a sarcastic manner. Then we had another internal person say, it's people who sell the weirdest stuff online. There was a guy selling camel milk, and he was selling, I didn't know that was a thing. I had to Google. He was selling like millions of euros a year of camel milk. A vertical I didn't know existed until that phone call. And then I realized it's these people who are really passionate about a weird thing, right? The camel milk, clearly, or like, I don't know, vintage hockey sticks, or like cutesy gnomes, garden gnomes, or whatever. And they want to share their passion with the world. And they don't know about business necessarily, but they just love their vintage hockey sticks, right? Or camel milk. And so they come in with this dream of like, yay, I have another sale in Poland. That's a specific example. And then a year later, they realize, I have a letter from the Polish tax office, and I didn't even know I had a business there, right? Because unfortunately, with e-commerce taxes, it's about where you sell to as much as where you sell from or ship from. It's very complicated. So now we can write an ad that says, we're here from your first sale abroad to, you know, a tax letter from a country that you didn't know you even had a business in, right? So you can play with these truisms in a way that's quite exciting, but I would always emphasize that it is rooted in the truth. But then the truth can always be dramatized. I'm a big fan of that, as you can tell, right? Take the truth and explore it to the state that is almost comedic. So you're obviously not trying to be accurate in your representation, but it's so over the top that people know that it's a joke, right? Instantly catches attention, right? I saw an ad by LinkedIn. LinkedIn does ads for LinkedIn. This is crazy good, right? It was one of my favorites. It's an ad of a grandma that is being interviewed. A grandma for LinkedIn, definitely not working age there. And it's an ad telling advertisers to advertise on LinkedIn. So the grandma is sitting in front of the camera, and they're asking her, Mrs. Ramos, what does your son do? And she says he sells clouds. And they're like, have you ever seen these clouds? And she's like, he says they're invisible. Right? And the line is, you need to go where your audience is, right? B2B is LinkedIn, right? And it's a fame campaign because we all know that our parents, we work in tech, our parents have no clue what we do, right? Something advertising-y, right? Product manager has ever tried to explain to their parents what the hell they do? Like, what? CS is easy, right? Like, you're basically being a patient parent, right? So a bunch of people who pay you money. And you can't do anything about the failures, so it's a terrible job as well. But do you know what I mean? It's in our vernacular. Our parents don't know what we do, however hard we explain. So they took that little insight and they decided to dramatize it in order to advertise their company, because that's the truism, right? Just a little bit more dramatic. I don't think anybody's ever interviewed their grandma like that, but it's a good idea. If you want more, like I have a bunch of stories, but that's why I have my newsletter, B2B That Made Me Feel Things, because I gather them all the time. And they range from a banner ad, where like, this copy is good. It made me like go, I like these guys. They got it. To like sales for Blockbusters, they did an ad with Matthew McConaughey, 90 seconds. So like this is literal Hollywood budget there. But we can still learn something from there because there is a reason why they chose him. There is a reason he's saying the words that he's saying. There's a reason the setting for the ad is a train in their case, right? So I break down why that is the case and what we can learn from it. But yeah, never lie. Just find the truth and make it exciting, right?
I have a question because startups, operate mostly on pitch decks, elevator speeches, and white papers. Do you have any experience in that?
Yeah.
Because marketing, let's say, pitch decks can be much more brutal or dramatic or just, with fancy unicorns and rainbow, because in most cases it doesn't go public.
So you listed pitch decks, thought leadership, and what was the other one? Webinar or
White paper.
white papers. Anything else? You said 3. What was the other thing?
Elevator pitch.
Elevator pitches.
Or video, demo video, but this is basically elevator speech.
Okay, so pitch decks, I'll park for a moment, right? Because it's sort of to the investor, right? So it has a slightly different use case. And I don't want to pass judgment on those who inflate how much they're going to get in their startup in order to get the money and then struggle to deliver it, because we know that happens. And unfortunately, I think that's the reality of a VC-backed business model, that you have to maybe act that way. I have thoughts, but I won't give you good advice on that. I have some thoughts on the thought leadership, so the white papers and the product demos. When we bump into a product demo, if we're already inside the product, we're probably sold on it, so the demo is more instructional. If we're outside the product, we still need to be persuaded to go inside the product, right? So the demo still needs to fight for our attention, and it can do it in 2 ways. Show that this is freaking useful and the best thing ever, and it will solve all of your problems instantly. Or tease you in to get your attention so that you're suddenly going down that funnel with exploring what the possibilities are. And my take is that even if you have somebody on your website, you still have to still have to fight for their attention, because wherever they are, even if they're in your product, you still have to be sufficiently exciting with copy, with video, whatever it may be, in order to get them down the funnel. And there's two ways of doing it. Either take their biggest pain points and make a demo related to that. No-brainer, absolute no-brainer, but I think that's what everybody's doing. Or you go back to fame, because I've seen product demos that have gone viral. You would want that, right?
Yes. Is there a bad fame? Do you know, for example, Squatty Potty?
What?
Squatty Potty. One of the best example of sales boosted by fame and total viral ad, which is quite controversial. Squatty Potty.
I do not know, but I can give you 2 examples of a demo that worked. One is, and I've seen it maybe about a year ago, the company's TLDV, again, I profiled them in my newsletter. They are a meeting recording AI, here's what you discussed. And they were launching a new feature, and it was on one of their social posts. So obviously you could be like, the real use case is, how many times did this client mention this feature so that we know what we build and not build, right? It's this sort of pragmatic take. But this was a video about a very passionate employee who was like, I sit on all these calls all day, and what I really want to know is when somebody who works from home starts talking about their dogs. Because then I want to see their dogs. And I want to go into the logs and look at their cute dogs, because everybody's working from home and dogs are the best things in my day. So their employee decided to put the alerts that filter the entirety of the company communication and video recorders for mentions of dogs, right? It's funny because it's so stupid and so ridiculous and so completely unapplicable to the everyday life, but it's also cute, and that's what makes it stand out. I've done a demo for another client, HR SaaS. We talked about them. Broken corporate cultures. They were like, we need a Christmas card. I'm like, what? Okay, right. We're still technically in a project, so now I need to make a Christmas card for an HR company. So we decided that we're going to do Santa's Workshops HR, right? And we're going to talk about motivation levels across different types of elves and how reindeer are protesting because their carrots are not organic. And that allows us to use their dashboards, their real dashboards, to showcase the sleigh number 1 and 2, and their behavior and motivation levels, their collaboration levels between the elves, etc. Right? But so we use the topic, we use the actual dashboard to map it out. But the idea in itself was very fame-based, right? It's December, of course, it's a Christmas card, right? So try to use something an example that is unorthodox, because that's the one your competitors will be using, and try to be human with it, just like we do here with abandoning the dashboards. It doesn't have to be dogs. It doesn't have to be Santa. But what I'm saying is there's plenty in the real world, in the news, that would allow you to, be more current and be closer to that fame and virality potential. See what I mean?
Yes, thanks. Ktoś jeszcze? Mika?
Hi, thank you for
Hello.
the fantastic presentation.
Thank you.
I have a question. Would you use the same framework for B2C companies as well, for SaaS, but into B2C?
Very good question. So fame is actually, that strategy being the most effective. It's using a mixture, it's based on a mixture of case studies B2B and B2C, but probably proportionally mostly B2C, right? But then the 81%, which kind of says of buyers buy the one that first comes to mind, is the same stat that's specifically for B2B. So absolutely. I know for a fact the IPA, Institute of Practitioners of Advertising, have done a study about 10 years ago. I remember I was at I want to say the launch of their white paper was not a fancy affair. It was a bunch of nerds drinking tea. And they looked at campaigns that are emotional, rational, and a mix of rational and emotional. And can you guess which ones were the most effective? Huh?
The emotional ones?
Yeah, and usually people are like, I guess I can agree with you a little bit that emotion matters, so maybe it's a mix of the two. No, it's just emotional. So every person in your life will probably tell you they make decisions in a rational way, but usually they make a decision in an emotional way and justify it with rationality, right? I bought this, because I had a talk coming up in Poland. No, I bought it because it was cute and I watched this movie and this girl in the movie was wearing an outfit like this, right? Do you know what I mean? That's the truth. So emotion matters in B2C. Also, it's the most effective way, and fame, absolutely so. The reason I'm gearing this talk towards B2B is because I find myself working a lot more with B2B clients because they need more help, right? And they typically don't have the resources in-house to do this. That's not a skill set they hire for.
Because you've touched upon the methodology that you are using to actually create the content. That's why I was asking. You would use the same process for B2B and B2C as well. So you would look at the means, look at the communication, look at the Reddit post, whatever, and then to distill it to the communication that is actually applicable to the target consumer that I want to address.
Yeah.
Okay. Another question.
If
you and as a follow-up, if you would you use the same thing if it was B2B2C? Sorry, I have
Can you
a product.
give me a B2B2C example so that I can
Yeah, this is my product. So I will be selling to therapists who are going to be giving this tool to their patients.
Yeah.
So I'm selling to a business, but they are giving to a patient.
Yeah, okay, understood. So you have dual target audience. I would say it's even more important to go broader in your messaging. Because if we think about it, I don't know the specifics of your tool, so I'm going to make stuff up based on my experience of therapy, right? Therapists.
I can give you like a one line
dark?
summary. It's an AI-based journaling tool that is going to analyze your emotion and give you what is helping you and what's not.
Got it? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's
cool. So then for therapists, I'm just guessing, you might want to communicate at this more like featuresy level, like it's safe, right? It's data is private so that they can be honest, right? The patients. It's auto-shared in some way. AI is not creepy, kind of message we're not feeding into anywhere, that sort of stuff. And for the patient, some of the messages will be the same. They also want to know that it doesn't leak to their mother, right? But you might also say it only takes 30 seconds a day. There's a push notification, right? So you're having slightly different messages at a tactical level. So if somebody's already on your website and you're retargeting the hell out of them with ads, those are the small featuresy things that you'd put in a retargeting ad. But if you want the whole world to talk about it, you need a message that sits way above both of them. So there's a messaging hierarchy, the small stuff and then the big stuff. So when it comes to therapy, I'm gonna make stuff up now on the spot what it could be, right? But it could be, this is not me. I actually saw an ad in the underground in Sweden by a therapy startup, and they said, no, everybody doesn't need to go to therapy. That's the headline. But if you do, we match you with the right therapist 9 out of 10 times, right? So the provocation was at the top, right? Because the cultural norm is everybody needs to go to therapy and everybody is like not good enough, right?
That's what I really loved about your presentation about the challenger brands.
Yeah.
The therapy startups, they are like those customs, I would say, in the SaaS business.
Yeah.
And being a challenger brand is the only thing that will get you to stand out, because there is a lot of startups in that particular area, in the mental health space. So I wonder what communication would be appropriate enough that it's not violating anybody's emotions, I guess, in this market, but would be challenging enough that would be interesting for the broader audience.
I'll give you a quick idea of what I would do. It depends on the stage of your startup, how much you can get away with, obviously, just literally legally. But we relate to popular culture, movies, series that profile somebody who is either in therapy, needs to be in therapy, or has a problem with their therapist. Now, if it's a line that everybody will recognize, you can put it on a poster or on a banner ad without saying where it's from, and people will know.
That's really good. Like putting the guy from Fight Club and then he needs therapy, like he needs help, right?
So many. I mean, most of Hollywood is based on flawed characters, otherwise we wouldn't have a storyline, right?
That's fantastic. Thank you so
You're
much for that.
Welcome. And actually, you could go further. You could use a clip, potentially. If it's on social media and it's not paid advertising,
and it's like 8 seconds rule, right? Or something like that. Like
yeah, Google Creative Commons, because there's a specific permission. So if you edit it for educational purposes and don't put ad money behind it, if you edit it to a certain proportion, you can do whatever the hell you want, right? So you won't get sued, because I know a startup who did something like this. They did The Shining. Jack, you know, on the typewriter, it's the TLDV startup, the ones who do meeting recorders.
I follow them. Their marketing is fantastic.
Right?
It's on point.
And I messaged the CEO. I was like, guys, what's up? Like, you didn't get sued? And he was like, here's how. So there's nuance, but chances are, if you're a smaller company, nobody's going to come at you. They do, and then they need to prove that you were mean and purposeful and commercially driven. Not worth their attention, obviously. So play with what's in the popular vernacular. Play with music. Every song is about heartbreak. Literally, there's so much therapy fodder there. Like, borrow from that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. So let's say we're playing the underdog game or challenger game of messaging.
Yeah.
How aggressive can we be on naming the established brands in our messaging? So there's 2 ways to write a single line. I mean, multiple ways. But one way is to say we don't charge like X, Y, Z company, specifically naming them, or being obtuse or you know, vague about it. Because if we name them, you know, people see it on LinkedIn, it's spicy, they're going to pay attention more, but...
You might get sued.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the answer to this is you can get sued for that.
How big is your company?
Just me.
Okay, you're not going to get sued. This is not legal advice. Please do your own research, la, 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 you know. But if you put it on LinkedIn ad with ad spent behind it, somebody can report it. They will. If they see it, they'll report it, right? Because it's basically defamation, right, in some kind. So even if you don't get sued, the ad will get reported. You might get like suspended, slap on the wrist. It probably won't run. Companies do use their other companies' names in their ads, but that's usually a customer. Like, hey, company X, don't you want to sync your CRM to la la la, right? Because nobody's gonna bother reporting that. You're not being mean, right? But here's the thing for you: implying things is like really cool, because you can't get sued for that. I've done that before. So I ran marketing at a company called Nets. They're part of Nexi Group, which is the biggest pay tech player in Europe. And they compete with Stripe and those kinds of online plug-in payments, a bunch of other companies, Molly, etc. I'm from Sweden. We have Klarna, right? Everybody's on Klarna, whether you like it or not. It's still the most convenient way to pay, whether you take credit and all of that or not. So I wrote an ad against the Big Pink. I didn't write Klarna in it, but I ran in Sweden, in the Nordics. Everybody know who's the big ping in payments, right? So nobody can come to me.
Perfect. That makes sense. Yeah.
Right? And then if you want to go even more creative, was one of the charities I wrote for a company I worked with. They're based in Australia. I know it's a bit random, really weird with the time zones. They're a hospitality platform. You know, when you come and order from a QR code and it all gets processed, that sort of stuff. They're second in Australia. The first one is a company called Me and You. I hope nobody's recording this because this might be too much information. And really, they just want to steal customers from them, right? Because their tech is a bit sucky. And one of the ideas I wrote, we didn't run with this in the end, but it was one of the 4 territories that I created, was a breakup ad for Mia Nu, the girl called Mia Nu, right? About how their relationship has been shaky for a long time and why are you stealing my friend's information, la-da-da-da. It's a bit creepy, right? But it definitely is provocative. It gets your attention. I didn't name the company. I could not be sued for it. They're perfectly safe. And it does make somebody's brain work a little bit harder to figure out what it's for. Fundamentally, we decided that other territories did a better job of putting them on the map. Because maybe as a company that's starting out, you don't want to lean quite as hard into, you know, the big bad other company. You want to build your own, right? So we parked that. But there are ways. What I'm saying is it can still run as content, right? It just wouldn't be your primary messaging. So copywriting, play with words, popular culture, music, film, it's all there for you. That's fame, right? Newspaper headlines are really good. For tactical campaigns, won't build your brand like tomorrow. But if there's something in the... I heard you have elections, right, in Poland now, right? So maybe don't mess with politics. But we have Eurovision soon. Sweden prioritizes that, right? You could definitely mess with that, right? Poke fun in something, be playful, comment on the word choice of a song, something like that, comment on the outfits, anything you can. And I actually wrote an ad about Trump tariffs recently for this e-com tax client, right? It was when he decided to tax penguins. You know, that island that only has penguins and no people? We wrote an ad about that, like, we do real maths here, we don't tax penguins, that sort of thing, right? It's not illegal. There's nothing wrong about it. And people will respond to it straight away because it's really fresh in their minds. So you're being modern, current, and on the same wavelength as them. That's also a fame campaign. Whew. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Yes? No? No? Thank you. Are we done? Are we done? Cool. Thank you so much for coming and spending this part of the afternoon with me. I'll be here all night. Not like as a comedian or anything, but yeah, let's hang out. Huh? Do I? The party? Oh, yeah, yeah, I'll be here all night.
Thank you for the presentation, by the way.
You're welcome. Keep in touch. Message
Absolutely.
me.
I'll add you on LinkedIn later. Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope it goes well.